Welcome back, everyone, to another freshly minted episode of Fantom Edge. I'm here with a very special guest and a very special edition. Dilshan, how are you, my friend?
Hey Louise, it's good to be back, man. I mean, we've had some good chats prior to this about Phantom and sustainability, but yeah, I'm very excited to share my thoughts with you.
Yeah, of course, man. I'm very excited. Like you mentioned, our first chat, you got to break down your dissertation that you just did. And first of all,
Yeah,
congratulations on graduating, man. I know the uphill battles that one can face, right, when they're going to school. So, and it's also very honorable for us as a foundation that you did your dissertation on Phantom. So, super excited to talk about that, and thankful for your time, man. But let's
yeah,
start off, man. Do a little brief introduction. When did you get into crypto? What are
yeah.
your interests, and then we'll go from there.
Cool, man. So I got into crypto in like 2020, 2021. And honestly, I was just playing around because, there was hype around NFTs and stuff.
Mm.
And I'm a little bit of an entrepreneur, so I like to, venture into new things. And whenever there's people talking about stuff, whatever's trending, I like to be there and see how I can, make some money out of it. Um, and so I was just casually getting into cryptocurrencies, and I really wanted my first NFT. So
Mm.
I was on Ethereum, as I think you would wind up when you begin your journey in
Absolutely.
cryptocurrencies. And I remember placing a bid on an NFT, and the gas fees were astronomical. And I was like, there's no, how are people doing
Yeah.
this? Like, how's everyone doing this? So then I went to a different blockchain and a different blockchain, and I was just playing around. And when I got to Phantom, I just couldn't get out. The gas fees were so good. That's the first thing. The second thing, which I think might get overlooked a lot, is the community, man. Everyone was
Mm-hmm.
helping me so much, and they didn't even know me. Like I
Yeah.
knew nobody in the space. I was just here playing around, just trying to make something happen to get my
Yeah.
first NFT. And man, the people in Phantom was so helpful. Like people
Mhm.
telling me how to bid, how to buy now, what good platforms are, how to bridge tokens over from Ethereum to
Yeah.
Phantom. Man, everyone's so helpful. And so for those two reasons, man, the technology and the community, that's what gripped me. And ever since I've stayed
Yeah.
loyal to Phantom.
You got
Yeah,
bit by the phantom bug. Yeah, I could
definitely,
relate to
man.
that, man. Like you said, I think everyone starts off. Obviously, Ethereum has a network effect, right? You start off, but then you start to realize some of the stuff. Like, man, I don't know if I want to use or spend, 40, 50, even up to $100 worth of gas for a transaction. So
No way.
absolutely, man. It's great to see that you've stayed here for, the process, because you mentioned bridging. Bridging is still
Yeah,
such a hard thing for people to do or understand, right?
yeah,
So
definitely.
I'm glad the community was there. So
Yeah, bro.
yeah, talk to us about your dissertation, right? Give us a brief overview of how you structured your paper, what you focus on, and then we'll discuss. I have another few questions for you on that.
Cool. So, for those of you who don't know, your dissertation is marked by your supervisor, and that gets assigned to you randomly. So, getting to know my supervisor, I realized that they had limited knowledge on cryptocurrencies and NFTs and the entire space. And because of that reason, I had to make sure that my dissertation was understandable for her and that she could comprehend all these complex terminologies. And for that reason, I tried to break down uh, the sustainability of the Fantom Network to as simple terms as I could. And I drew comparisons and conclusions in regards to the Fantom Network sustainability in the most layman, like using the most layman terms as possible. And some of this might seem like a bit of a stretch, and I understand, and that is a listed limitation in my dissertation. But you'll see that I try to make everything as simple as possible, and I try to draw conclusions, although sometimes a little far-fetched. I try to make, real life comparisons that anybody who picks up the paper could read and understand and realize that the sustainability of the Fantom Network should not be overlooked.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's a very hard task, right? Explaining these things in layman terms,
Yeah,
like you mentioned.
yeah,
So I think that was a great challenge of you to actually do so, for such a piece. So there's two things when I was looking over the paper myself, man. and we talked over, you focus on the efficiency, sustainability, and then the profitability, right? And you use two very
Correct.
specific real world examples,
Correct.
incandescent light bulbs compared to LEDs, and then you use BlackBerry to Android, if I'm correct.
Yeah,
Walk us through that in each sector. Walk us through and why you use
definitely.
that as a way to kind of draw that comparison.
For sure. Before I get into my comparison, I just want to tell you, like those of you who don't know, um, for anything in relation to sustainability, there is sort of a foundation in place, and that is known as the triple bottom line of sustainability. Sustainability, and this focuses on three primary aspects: the people, the planet, and profit. And it's a belief that if you're able to make these three aspects of your business sustainable, you've basically got it all covered. However, due to time constraints, I could only focus on two out of three of these aspects, and that is the planet and profit. So I didn't have time to focus on the people, so I didn't really go into having proper leaders in place in the Fantom Foundation and stuff like that. I just didn't have the time or the resources, in fact. So I went into the planet and profit.
Mhm.
So under the planet, what we realize is you're on the pursuit for environmental sustainability. And for profit, you're in the pursuit of financial sustainability.
Mhm.
So for environmental sustainability, the factor I used to draw my comparisons was the energy consumption per transaction. So I compared Fantom's energy consumption per transaction with that of Ethereum's.
Mhm.
And for the financial side, the factor I used to determine and to draw these comparisons was the cost of gas per transaction. And just like I've mentioned, I compared the cost of gas for a single transaction on the Fantom network with that of if the same transaction on the Ethereum network.
Correct.
And what I found out was something very interesting. So Fantom is 99.9% more efficient than Ethereum when it comes to the energy consumption per transaction, which is under the environmental segment.
Mhm.
And Fantom is also 99.98% more sustainable compared to Ethereum when it comes to the cost of gas per transaction, which is under the financial sustainability side of things.
Yeah.
And so I go on, and this is where I make some comparisons that, I try to make it as simple as possible. So although it might seem a bit far-fetched, I just try to stress, and I cannot stress it enough that,
Mhm.
I understand that this is far-fetched and it's somewhat of a reach, but I'm trying to make people in the real world who have limited to no understanding of, the Web3 space to be able to relate to what I'm saying. So
Mhm.
we find out that Fantom is 99.9% more environmentally sustainable than Ethereum. And this is huge because when LED light bulbs first came out, LED light bulbs were about 75% more efficient than incandescent light bulbs.
Mhm.
And this caused a shift in the US households to start adopting LED light bulbs. And as it stands, for every single incandescent light bulb that is being used in the US household, three LED light bulbs are being used.
Mhm.
And although, it's not the same, and I understand that there are limitations to my comparisons, what I'm trying to say is that that was with just 75%
Mhm.
greater environmental efficiency. LED light bulbs have triple the amount of users than incandescent light bulbs.
Mhm.
And with Fantom having 99.9% more environmental efficiency, although there are many other factors at play, which I do understand,
Mhm.
it wouldn't be the most bizarre claim to make to say that I believe that Fantom will eventually have more users than the Ethereum network. And this is just from a sustainability perspective. And
Correct.
like I cannot stress it enough, there are other factors at play for sure. But we've come to see all around us that sustainability is very, very important in
Mhm.
an organization's success.
Right.
Likewise, as mentioned, Fantom is 99.98% more efficient in terms of coming from a financial perspective uh, than Ethereum based on the cost of gas per
Mhm.
transaction. And so I draw another comparison which discusses how financial sustainability affected the smartphone industry. So BlackBerry used to have a 20% mobile phone market share in 2009. And then when Androids came out, Androids cost about two-thirds, like 26% cheaper than Blackberries. And even though it's just 23% cheaper, this resulted in a huge shift over from BlackBerry users who became Android users. And Android gained an 81% market share, and Blackberries plummeted to just 3%. And
Yeah.
what this is trying to say is that people care about the cost. People care about how expensive things are. And although Ethereum might have more users than Fantom at the moment, with Fantom having 99.98% cheaper gas fees,
Yeah.
it just seems imminent that users are going to begin porting over from Ethereum based on the cost of using the network.
Yeah.
And again, there are many other factors at play. It's not all about the cost of gas. I understand there are limitations in making comparisons like these, but I just want the public to understand that financial costs are very important.
Yeah.
And even if this might not apply to everyone, it did for me. And as you asked me earlier, what made me stay? What made me
Yeah.
retain, the my use of the Fantom network? And it was the cost of the gas. It
Yeah.
was. And I don't mention this in my dissertation, but it's an observation that I've made. You see, a lot of Web3 organizations, their ultimate goal is to achieve mass adoption. You want to be able to
Yeah.
go on a drive-through through McDonald's and be able to pay in Ethereum or Fantom. And I don't see how you can buy a Happy Meal, for example,
Hmm.
for $9.99 and then pay $20 in gas. It's not feasible. Whereas I can see Fantom's technology being used for something like that because financial sustainability is important and cost is a very, very huge factor that affects, Web3 mass adoption.
Yeah. I think like you mentioned, there's a lot of different limitations to those observations and comparisons. But
Yeah,
I think for someone who's entering the space or someone that wants to learn about the space, those examples make sense. Like you
yeah,
said, from a sustainability standpoint, like you mentioned, BlackBerry had the market share, in a chokehold until
yeah, yeah.
Android came about. Sorry. So it's very interesting to think about it that way. And it makes you think about the future of the space in terms of network effects and usage, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, Ethereum being one of the oldest, right? And having that market share, it makes you think, what about, 5, 10 years down the line? Can
Mhm.
Fantom, can another chain have that market share due to the efficiency in that sense? So I think it's a great way to, you said, like you mentioned, to make people think, specifically to people who are entering the space, right?
Yeah.
Now, excuse me. Now, having written this paper, from a personal standpoint, I mean, what do you think are other roadblocks in the space that are, keep people hesitant from experiencing it, whether it be
Mhm.
like one of them, gas fees. A lot of
Mhm.
people don't know how to buy crypto, first of all.
Mhm.
So what
Education. Yeah.
yeah, what do you think is a limitation right now?
Yeah, definitely the lack of education. I've come to realize that people naturally fear what they don't know, and it's not, you know, uncommon for people to tell you in a regular conversation about
Hmm.
cryptocurrencies and NFTs that, oh, it's all a scam, it's a pyramid scheme, it's,
Hmm.
you know, illegal.
Yeah.
And this all comes from the root cause of the lack of education. So that's one of my biggest roadblocks, I believe. And the second, I guess, would be the criminal activity that goes on in the space. And I'm not talking in Fantom, but in the whole
Yeah.
cryptocurrency space, you see phishing, hacking,
Yeah.
uh, the use of cryptocurrencies to trade illegal goods. And I think that you sort of need some sort of protection and some greater form of, although you want to maintain decentralization and privacy and security, and I understand that there has to be some kind of trade-off where we get some sort of security to
Yeah.
protect people who don't know better in this space.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's always going to be education, right? And it's unfortunate sometimes. I've had conversations with friends and people in the space where, for instance, yesterday, someone asked me, what should I buy? What crypto? I got some money. It's like, man, that's like the worst question to start with, you
Yeah,
know? I think there's so many fundamentals that you need to learn before you actually
yeah.
purchase or do a transaction. So I think even just the fundamental thought process and the frameworks one has to have to come in here, because it's still a financial driven world, and
Yeah.
there's just new I guess ways to transact.
Mhm.
So yeah. Before I let you go, Dilshan, I'm curious to see and to know what are you most excited about? What's been kind of keeping your attention
Yeah.
in the space in general? That's kind of like, oh wow, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's always tough in the bear
Yeah.
market maintain that commitment to your cryptocurrencies and your portfolio and everything that's going on. But for me, having done my paper, the more I research, the more I write, the more I come to realize that the future of Phantom is very bright, especially from a sustainability standpoint. And that's what's keeping me going. That's what's keeping my faith. And that's what's
Mhm.
keeping me, continuing to maintain this healthy community that we have as well of people who are staying around during the bear market and projects who continue building. I think that eventually they will reap their rewards. And although it's a small sacrifice now to, maybe have to do some work for without any monetary gain, I do see that down the line, based on my investigation into the sustainability of the network, that things will be brighter. And, there are great days ahead.
Absolutely, man. It's always refreshing to get that inspiration during a bear market still. So,
Yeah.
Dilshan, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. And for those of you that tuned in, thank you. Go check out the dissertation that he wrote. I'll link it down below. But Dilshan, I look forward to having you in the future. I know you're also
Yeah.
looking for a role right now in the marketing sector. So hopefully someone listening to this be like, okay, cool. I need that right now, or
Yeah.
people send stuff your way. But it's been a pleasure, my man. And
Yeah.
I look forward
Thank
to
you so
chatting.
much, Louise.
Of course, I look forward to
Yeah.
chatting with you again in the future, man, in the near future to see what your updates are and
Yeah.
let's talk about more stuff that excites us. So, yeah,
Yeah.
man.
Let's do it, man. Thank you so much. It's been so much fun.
Of course, man. I'll talk to you later.
Yeah. See ya.